Now, our order tonight was decided by random draw. Up first is Democratic nominee Mikie Sherill, who holds a razor-thin lead according to our latest polling. And afterwards, we'll hear from the Republican nominee Jack Ciattarelli. With nearly 11% of voters still undecided, what's said tonight could lead those voters to make up their minds. With all that, Dan, I hand things off to you.
Shirley, thank you so much. Great to have you here. Great to have our audience in-house and all of you joining at home as well. And we do begin, like Shirley said, with the Democratic nominee, Mikie Sherill. So let's talk about her. She spent 10 years in active duty flying Navy helicopter missions throughout Europe and the Middle East. She's been serving in Congress for more than 6 years, and she currently lives in Montclair, New Jersey. So please welcome the Democratic nominee for governor, Mikie Sherill. How are you, Congresswoman? Good to see you. Have a seat here. Looking forward to a good conversation. We've got a great audience in attendance tonight. You ready to get started?
I'm ready.
All right. So let me talk about what's really been in the headlines the past 2 weeks about you. The New Jersey Globe publishing this story that you did not walk in your Naval Academy graduation. There's been reports of this cheating scandal. So I want to give you a moment right now to clear the air and explain what exactly happened.
Sure. So I've been very clear. I didn't walk because I didn't turn in some of my classmates. But then I think what's really been disheartening to voters around the state, and especially to veterans, is the fact that Jack Ciattarelli got illegal access to my private military records. Things included things like my social security number, information on my 80-year-old parents' home address, health information. It was so obviously protected data that when a member of his campaign team got access to it, he said he was shocked and disgusted. But that didn't stop them from shopping it to journalists. And just to give people a sense of what happened, the day before the primary, a member of his team asked for the records and was told no, those had private information. So then a couple days after, he was introduced to, as he put it, a real nice person at the archives. That person should have had a signature from me, my social security number, and should have informed the Navy that this happened. They did none of that. And in fact, someone at the archives went into the VA database to pull the social security number, put it in to pull down my records, and then gave them over illegally. So, you know, it's been a week where people have been coming up to me constantly, veterans, saying, you know, you got to stand up. You cannot let this happen to my records and my data. There's an ongoing IG investigation. And the House Armed Services, leadership in the House Armed Services, in the Oversight Committee and the Judiciary have all called for investigations into exactly how this happened.
And I'm going to ask Jack about those questions, but the Globe also reported that you rejected this request to release disciplinary records from your own time in the Academy and that you declined to do so. So was not walking the extent of your discipline in the scandal?
So here we have someone who has gotten access to privilege private military records, release them, and then wants to go on some sort of rampage through all my classmates' data. And I think what's pretty telling here is that I graduated from the Naval Academy. I served for almost 10 years. I was a helicopter pilot, a Russian policy officer. I held the highest positions of trust. I had a top secret compartmentalized information clearance in the military. And once Jack did not get what he wanted from this, he went after my husband. He went after other members of my family who are serving. And so at this point, yeah, I've been very clear. I've been clear on what happened, and he has the records to prove it.
Yeah, and there's been these calls to release the disciplinary records, right? And only you can do that. So in a matter of transparency...
These are records that contain all of my classmates' information.
So your disciplinary records, as a matter of transparency, to put the issue to bed, you don't want to release them?
Look, he has these records. He has the information, and I'm not going to. I'm sure he is, because I'm sure he'll go to Trump next. The problem here is he's getting access to personally identifiable information, and now his response is he wants to get more. I mean, I think it's pretty clear to voters, which is why, again, I've had so many people reaching out. And look, I've said to him, I've got strong shoulders. I'm a sitting member of Congress. I can stand up to this. I have decided to run for office, and if he wants to come at me, I can take that. But to then go after my family, to obtain these illegally, it's, you know, we've had for years this sort of swift vote mentality in the GOP, where anytime you're a veteran running, they are trying to find any means of going after your record of service. And this is a new low, to illegally gain access to records at the National Archives, to now have an IG investigation into just what's going on, to have multiple leaders call to find out exactly what's going on here, and to, instead of turning over the records he has illegally, as he's been asked to do by legal counsel, he's doubling down on this. And I think it's inappropriate, and I think every member of New Jersey should ask themselves, if this is what he'll do to win an election, what would he do as governor?
Okay, Congressman, I want to move on to right now what's playing out in real time. We're at day 3 now of this government shutdown. And last time you and I spoke during the primary, you had just gotten back from actually preventing a government shutdown. In fact, you told me that you had spent 24 hours over at the Capitol. So the question is, why didn't you vote this time to keep the government open and urge your colleagues in the Senate to do the same? What was the sticking point for you to vote no?
So we have seen with the rescission bill, the budget bill, or the one big beautiful bill, an attack on our economy here in New Jersey. It would put just in Medicaid alone a $5 billion hole in our budget. As you know, New Jersey sends $70 billion more to the federal government than it receives back. So the Trump administration has gone after health care. It'll raise utility costs, which I'm desperately trying to lower. It'll raise the cost of education as we're working to lower it and create opportunity. He's actually attacking some of the innovations that we put in place, and now he's saying he's going to freeze the Gateway Tunnel money. So again and again, trying to attack our economy. So to then allow him to continue to do so, the fight is just saying, look, you've got to fund some of the health care because the costs are now exorbitant with what you're doing, and Trump is refusing to do that, and Jack is saying nothing. And again with all of these financial hits, Jack Ciattarelli just goes along with Trump, and the latest being the Gateway Tunnel project, which he said wasn't a New Jersey problem.
Yes, let me ask you about that, right? The $18 billion that the president is withholding right now for this infrastructure project. For those who don't know, it's that tunnel that connects New York and New Jersey. It would employ thousands of union jobs. How would you, as governor, keep that project funded?
Almost 100,000 jobs is what we're looking at here, and the hit is huge. And so, you know, I think we need to be in court right now because Congress has appropriated this funding to the Gateway Tunnel. This is our federal share. And for the Trump administration to illegally withhold it, and the reason they're saying they are illegally stopping these projects doesn't seem to be going to other projects. It's simply the Gateway Tunnel and the East Side subway system. So it's obviously targeted, and you know, and I'm going to fight it every step of the way. I fought it the first time.
Before governor, you would go to court.
I think the state should be in court right now, and as governor, my attorney general would take this administration to court. That's how we've successfully been clawing money back. And again, I would say I think it's really striking that my opponent has said he'd never take this administration to court.
Okay, I want to talk about the sales tax right now. In a recent debate, you said you didn't want to commit to not lowering them, but afterwards your campaign put out a statement in a press release saying that you are committed to not raising the sales tax. But I want to get you on the record right now. Is sales tax going to go up during a Sherill administration?
No, and what Jack kept saying he was putting it on the table, I've taken it off the table because I am working incredibly hard to lower costs for New Jerseyans. And at every turn and throughout his career, Jack has raised costs. So while I fought tooth and nail to get rid of the state and local tax deduction cap, he's supported the reimplementation of it. He's voted for against over $1 billion in tax relief, property tax relief for New Jerseyans, and supported Trump, who now has put in place another $30 billion hit against property tax relief here. So again and again, I've worked to lower taxes. And Jack, at every level of government he served in, has voted to raise taxes. So I think that, too, is a really sharp contrast.
Yeah, so no on the sales tax, and there's the all-important issue, of course, to a New Jersey resident, which is property taxes, right? And I did ask you during the primary, would property taxes be lower with you as governor? And you said property taxes, yes, meaning they would be lower. But at this week's lieutenant governor debate, your running mate, Dale Caldwell, said, quote, that was the goal. So are you confident that property taxes will be lower at the end of 4 years if you were governor?
Yeah, so yes, because we have to start to make changes to how we are running our state. Costs are too high for people. It's at the breaking point. I've heard for years about property taxes. I mean, that was in my first race. It was constantly focused on the state and local tax deduction cap, which impacts how much you can deduct from your federal taxes for your property taxes. I was hearing from homeowners across the state about how hard it was to continue with the property taxes with the cap. And now I'm hearing things that are much worse about affordability in our state. So instead of people just saying costs are too high, I'm hearing things like, I'm drowning. I can't keep my head above water. Some days I feel like I can't breathe. This is a new level of families feeling as if they just are at their wits' end with affordability. And property taxes is one of those key areas. And so we've got to share services.
Yes.
We really, and I can go into
you're talking about combining school districts, right? And a lot of your plan is to do that and consolidating these school district municipalities, which has been talked about but rarely has happened. So you said you would look at compulsory movements in areas if people didn't volunteer to consolidate, which is something that the current governor, Phil Murphy, wasn't fond of. So what does that kind of movement look like, and how quickly would you take action if someone didn't combine?
Well, I think first you provide the incentive structure. And what we really need to do is address the administrative costs, because some of our schools are running full administrative costs, meaning they're paying administrators, they're paying for the buildings housing the administrations, and yet they're not even running full K through 12 programs, which cost an exorbitant amount of money. So just to give people an idea of the impact of all this, we have more municipalities than California, and we have more school systems than municipalities.
So how would you force someone to combine?
Well, I think what you do is you start with state resources on understanding it, because it is difficult sometimes for these municipalities who want to combine services to have the resources to do it, to know what the right contracting is. So I think the state has to push in the carrots first. Look, here we are going to provide you opportunities, and then defray some of the concerns that towns have about it. Okay, let's negotiate where we're going to make sure it doesn't mean just because we're combining administrative costs that you lose your elementary school around your house, which people don't want to do. So you start there, and then you also incentivize it through running some of the great county-based school systems. Some of our county-based high schools are our best performing high schools in the state right now, and they're also some of our most nimble, offering opportunities in STEM education and occupational opportunities. So that's the way I would start. And then as we move forward, as some of these areas are becoming more and more expensive to run, I think we have to start to negotiate with, harder negotiation to say, look, we can't keep funding this, and let's all sit down at the table to come to terms with what this is going to look like.
One of your key pieces of your campaign has been the energy crisis that we've been facing in the state, and you said you will declare this state of emergency, right? So does that mean, and freeze rates immediately, does that mean that rates will stay frozen at their current rate, which is about 10% higher for some folks than it was last year?
So we're going to freeze them initially and then work to drive down costs at the current rate, and then work to drive down costs. There have been too many people that have just kicked the can down the road, and they put that on the back of ratepayers. And so we're already defraying the cost for some of the most vulnerable people. Now we're freezing rate hikes for everyone because they're set to go up significantly next year. And then we're going to drive in massive amounts of power.
Right, so some folks might hear that and say, well, my energy bill is really high right now. So how long will it stay frozen for before it actually gets lowered?
Well, right now they're all set to go up. So that's what I'm combating. I'm saying, look, we can't just keep saying every year it goes up by 20%.
When do people see the relief?
Well, I think some people see relief right away as we make sure most vulnerable people are taken care of. And then we're moving quickly. We have to cut through red tape and permitting to get massive amounts of solar, battery storage projects. Those can go in relatively quickly. And the faster we can move them in, the better, because we still could get some access to the federal grant money to drive down costs. Some of the gas generation plants, we can modernize them within 3 to 5 years. And then there's some longer term fixes like nuclear power. But every bit of power that we produce in the state right now is driving down costs significantly, because the market is so screwed up by PJM that buying on the market now is quite expensive. So every electron we start to produce starts to drive down costs for everyone.
Our next question comes from our partners over at PHL 17. So Jennifer Lewis Hall, I want you to take a listen here.
New Jersey's plan to ban the sale of new gas-powered cars starting in 2035 is in limbo due to resolutions signed by President Trump. That ban was adopted under Governor Murphy, who said it would lead to cleaner air and mitigate climate impacts. If elected governor, would you fight attempts to halt this ban?
So I have been really focused on how we are driving down carbon.
Yep.
And I've said to people, I'm pretty agnostic on how we do it. We need more power, we need cheaper power, and we need cleaner power. And one of the greatest sources of carbon emissions are our cars. So making sure that we are moving people into cars that burn cleaner is a huge goal of mine. Now, we have to address the fact that we don't always have all the charging stations we need for people to move into solely battery-powered cars. I've been a supporter of hybrid cars, which is kind of a gateway into people becoming comfortable and driving down their fuel emissions. So we're going to have to see where the federal government is and certainly take the federal government to court in every way, because I want autonomy as governor in New Jersey. But I think we'll have to see. I don't think we have the infrastructure ready for this right now.
Oh, we talked about the Gateway Tunnel project and how important transit is to folks. And right now, New Jersey Transit, as well as the tolls, are getting these annual 3% fare hikes. Would you keep that in place, or would you say no more?
What I want to do is come up with a dedicated source of funding for rail. And so we can't... Rail is not funded on the backs of commuters. It's too expensive. Yeah. So generally around the world, you look at things like transit-oriented development, the real estate that our rail has to do things like run parking lots that get money into the system, and advertising on buses, rail systems, et cetera. All of this feeds in money so that you have a dedicated source of funding and can keep costs lower. That's what I'm looking to do.
So no fare hikes.
So I'm not sure how quickly we can get some of this done and when that will start, but I want to get a dedicated source in so we can begin to level off.
Okay, I want to talk about right now a really important topic, which is immigration. And last time I sat with you, I did ask you if you thought New Jersey should be a sanctuary state, and you talked about due process and really protecting the Constitution. Now, Governor Murphy, as you know, started the Immigrant Trust Directive, which limits state and local law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. Now, I asked your Lieutenant Governor this week at our debate if your administration would keep that. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Well, Mikie's going to hire an attorney general that's very strong that may have something even stronger than that.
Something even stronger than the Immigrant Trust Directive. So would you continue the Immigrant Trust Directive?
So what I would like to see is for comprehensive immigration reform. That's at the federal level. That's something that we've gotten very close to on several occasions. The last time President Trump took it down, despite the negotiations between some of the most conservative members of the Senate and Democrats in the Senate, that we thought was very close, and we thought we were going to get it done, but he took it down for political reasons. And that would have strengthened our borders and provided a pathway to citizenship for people who are here and paying taxes and DACA recipients, et cetera. And that's what most people felt was a good pathway for both our economy and for public safety. Where we are now is making sure that we have public safety and that our streets are safe. And so what that means is ensuring that people can go report crimes with the police, that they can go to school, that they can go to church and feel safe in their communities. And that's why also I'm on legislation federally and will push this and get legislation like this in the state to make sure that federal agents are identifiable.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the mask, but the question is really the Immigrant Trust Directive. You've been vague on whether or not you would keep it. Is it a yes or no? Will you keep that directive?
Well, I think I've been clear on the areas of it that I'm very in favor of. So making sure people can safely go to report crimes with the police or safely go get health care.
Do you feel they can do that with the Immigrant Trust Directive?
Well, I think there's some other areas that I think are unclear. So I think, I was just speaking to someone in law enforcement earlier about concerns about, well, what if someone's in real danger? What if a federal agent's in real danger and they need to help them? So I think there are some areas that aren't clear enough.
So because it's unclear, do you want to get rid of it?
There are areas of it that I'm very supportive of and areas that I think need to be addressed.
So zooming out more broadly speaking, should local law enforcement play any role in what we're seeing play out with some of these ICE raids around the country?
Should local law enforcement do what?
Should local law enforcement play any role in some of these ICE raids that we're seeing play out around the country?
I think the job of local law enforcement is to keep the public safe. And that's why I have been so concerned about some of the people coming into our communities that are unidentifiable. So I heard from one member of local law enforcement who was speaking to a friend of mine who said a guy came into his town and looking like he was going to Afghanistan, was the quote. And when the police officer from the town asked him for identification, he said he didn't have to provide any. And when pushed, and the police officer said, well, you're going to have to provide some, or, I'm going to arrest you. He said, well, I'm going to arrest you. And the two of them said, well, we'll work it out in prison, I guess. And he finally showed some ID. But to have people like that on our streets fully armed, refusing to identify themselves, is not safe. And that's not something I think our police are happy with. They've said they're not. And I think there are grave concerns about public safety and what's going on here. So, again, we've heard about ICE agents rappelling into apartment buildings from helicopters. We've heard about people being picked up who are here legally and detained for a period of time, and people can't find them, that kind of thing. And that's not something I want to make sure that our police officers are following the law and the Constitution.
Okay. I want to talk right now about the governor, which clearly has to work with partners in the Tri-State area. Focus would be New York City. Now, your opponent has put out various ads claiming that you're flip-flopping on the race for New York City mayor and your support of Zohran Mamdani. So let me ask you, do you support or endorse the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani?
I have not getting engaged in that race because I'm completely focused on New Jersey. I'm going to let the people of New York decide that race. And we talked about this last time we spoke because you always ask me about Mamdani. And I always tell you, I'm not getting asked about that on the streets of New Jersey. People in New Jersey are constantly talking to me about affordability. They're talking to me about their cost, about electricity, about housing prices, et cetera, about healthcare. They're worried about the freezing of Gateway Tunnel funds.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking, by the way, is because it is becoming a national race, much like this one, right? So why not support a fellow Democrat in a race?
Again, I'm focused on the New Jersey race, and that's a New York race. I'm not registered to vote there, so I'm focused here.
Our most recent polling showed that voters want the next governor to stand up to the president as much as they want them to work with him. So is there something that President Trump is doing right now that you think is actually a positive for New Jersey and you would like to continue to work with him on and build upon?
I am hopeful that the president at some point soon decides to reopen the government, and I'm happy to work with him on providing more funding for health care and for the Affordable Care Act so subsidies don't go up by hundreds and hundreds of dollars for people across the state.
We're talking a lot about discussion around political violence and rhetoric. What is one thing that you respect about your opponent, Jack Ciattarelli?
One of his children is in the military, and I respect service.
Just last week, President Trump and the Health Secretary, RFK Jr., told pregnant women to not take Tylenol. He also said that parents should not give their children Tylenol, linking both of them to autism. Now, Dr. Oz, who's a member of the administration, came out and said, well, take it when it's appropriate. But you would have your own health commissioner in the state of New Jersey. What would you urge your health commissioner to advise New Jersey residents at a time when the president is saying something like that?
I would urge my health commissioner to review the data, come out with their findings, and then urge people in New Jersey to follow those findings.
We're also heading into, dare I say, peak upper respiratory illness season, which brings me to the topic of vaccines. And the Trump administration limiting COVID vaccines right now to only those who are 65 and older or have other health conditions, prompting Governor Murphy to issue his own executive order allowing pharmacies to prescribe the vaccines and let them be covered under insurance. Would you continue that program, and how long would you continue it for?
I would continue that program. There are certain vulnerable people that need access to these vaccines, and I'm also really worried about this rollback in some basic protections. So for almost 50 years, children have been given the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella. children have been given vaccines for pertussis. Some of these diseases have been all but eradicated, and now there are unvaccinated populations, and it doesn't take too much of a percentage to drop for immunity to be lost. And so we've seen, I think, about 10 cases of measles in New Jersey, and we're the most densely populated state in the nation. And we've seen across the country several babies dying from pertussis or whooping cough. And remember, you have to wait for a period of time to get that vaccine. So the idea that you are going to have your child go to school and be threatened with diseases that should be eradicated, that I've never seen a case of measles or mumps or rubella. I mean, these were diseases that in my childhood had been pretty much eradicated. To think that you'd send your child, and I have 4 kids, so as I was sending kids to school, I had babies at home often, and put everyone in danger. I've lived with my in-laws for a while, putting them in danger. So I just, as governor, I'm going to work with the Northeast Health Consortium, which New Jersey is a part of, to make sure that we are putting out good medical data and that we are also ensuring that people have access to regular vaccines.
Up against the clock here, your opponent's running ads saying a vote for you is a vote for Phil Murphy. So let me ask you, as we come to an end of a Phil Murphy term, what is a letter grade you would give him?
I think I'd give him about a B. He certainly has paid into the pension. He's had the credit rating increased 9 times, which is great. But I'm also really frustrated. I think there's a culture in Trenton that needs to have a culture shift, a get-to-know culture that needs to be a work with the citizens of New Jersey culture. I'm frustrated with where we are in electricity cost, and that the red tape and bureaucracy has not been appropriately addressed. And so we are not getting new projects into the ground to drive down costs for people.
Okay, Ms. Sherill, we're going to have to leave it there, given equal time to both of you. Thank you for being here. And we're going to take a quick break, everybody. Return with the Republican nominee, Jack Ciattarelli. Stay with us.